You tuned into the right place. Welcome to the rain. Golden Queuing. H2.0. Yeah. You're looking for a diamond, found a treasure in the rough. Tired of all the noise, cause you finally had enough. I'm here to build a movement on a mission for the nation. Dropping gems of knowledge, killing all the hesitation. We fighting for the truth, yeah, we fighting for what's right. Building unity and shining up a brand new light. It's a variety channel, but the vision's crystal clear. Pushing us all forward, conquering the doubt and fear. Welcome to the Queendom, it's 2.0 on your screen, where the content's real and smart and funny in between. This is more than just a stream, it's a platform for the change. Time to elevate the game and rearrange. If you're ready for a vibe that you can feel and trust, joining in the movement is a definite must. This ain't just another channel talking smack behind the screen. It's a spotlight for the creators, building up a better scene. Spreading radical love, that's the message in the code. Helping everybody carry up a heavy load. From social justice issues to the laughter that we need. Planting seeds of progress, watch them grow from just a seed. This is authentic, this is raw, this is everything you saw. Welcome to the battle that is truly being fought. Ooh, so come with your respect and see the real effect. Cause I protect my own right here on the throne. Don't make me me. Unleash the dragon. Subscribe, ring that notification bell. Yeah, you don't wanna miss a thing. Welcome to the family. Yeah, you tuned into the right place. Welcome to the rain. Golden Queuing. H2.0. Yeah. You're looking for a diamond, found a treasure in the rough. Tired of all the noise, cause you finally had enough. I'm here to build a movement on a mission for the nation. Dropping gems of knowledge, killing all the hesitation. We fighting for the truth, yeah, we fighting for what's right. Building unity and shining up a brand new light. It's a variety channel, but the vision's crystal clear. Pushing us all forward, conquering the doubt and fear. Welcome to the Queendom, it's 2.0 on your screen, where the content's real and smart and funny in between. This is more than just a stream, it's a platform for the change. Time to elevate the game and rearrange. If you're ready for a vibe that you can feel and trust, joining in the movement is a definite must. This ain't just another channel talking smack behind the screen. It's a spotlight for the creators, building up a better scene. Spreading radical love, that's the message in the code. Helping everybody carry up a heavy load. From social justice issues to the laughter that we need. Planting seeds of progress, watch them grow from just a seed. This is authentic, this is raw, this is everything you saw. Welcome to the battle that is truly being fought. Ooh, so come with your respect and see the real effect. Cause I protect my own right here on the throne. Don't make me me. Unleash the dragon. Subscribe, ring that notification bell. Yeah, you don't wanna miss a thing. Welcome to the family. Yeah. 1980 25, a barber's boy with a dream and a lie. Underneath the German sun, watching the draft go by. 16 years of age, Friedrich left the valley in line to find a brand new alchemy and a different kind of mind. He didn't leave for gold in the Yukon's frozen breath. He fed the men who hungered, he danced on the edge of death. Operating in the shadows where the law refused to go. Building wealth from the chaos and the frontier steady flow. Deported by the crown of wanderers seeking the shore. He planted the seeds in Queens, then opened the family door. The hustle's in the marrow, the survival's in the blood. A dynasty rising up from the frontier in the mud. It's the making of a fighter, the phantom in the soul. From the Yukon to the courtroom, they're taking back control. Never back down, never say you lost the fight. 100 years of strategy emerging from the night. Can you see the pattern? The haunting of the plague. The same old iron tactics, just a brand new day. Fast forward to the era, rebel in the suit of gray. Sent to the barracks at 13 to find a different way. A father's voice echoing, you're a killer or a ghost. In the New York military where the winners matter most. Iron sharpening iron, the hierarchy of the yard. Learning how to master void and keep the spirit hard. More further, just a map of the victors and the slain. He learned to use the uniform to navigate the pain. No room for the weak, no mercy for the fall. Build a persona, I build a metaphorical wall. 73 of venture packing, looking for a crack. Enter Cohn, the shadow who never doubled back. A McCarthy-era mentor with a heart of legal stone. He taught the young apprentice how to defend the throne. Rule 1, never settle. Rule 2, strike him first. Rule 3, claim the victory, even when you're at your worst. Counter sue for millions, keep the media in a trance. Turn a legal battle into a choreographed dance. It wasn't just a lawyer, it was the blueprint for the reign. The doctrine of the counter punch, the master of the swing. I'm asking the jury, in the court of history's street, is this a destiny? Or just a pattern on repeat? The barber, the cadet, and the lawyer's cold design. Does the past make the man? Or is the man the end of the line?
First special rising, lying with the mornings and running still.
Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl Golden. Hold on, let me see. Child, hold on. Stupid mic.
private barber's boy with a dream and a lie. Underneath the German sun, watching the draft go by. 16 years of age, Friedrich fled the Bavarian lion. Find a brand new alchemy in a different kind of mine. He didn't dig for gold in the Yukon's frozen breath. He fed the men who hungered, he danced on the edge of death. Operating in the shadows where the law refused to go. Building wealth from the chaos and the frontiers did he flow. Deported by the crown, a wanderer seeking the shore. He planted the seeds in Queens, then opened the family door. The hustle's in the marrow, the survival's in the blood. A dynasty rising up from the frontier and the mud. It's the making of a fighter, the phantom in the soul. From the Yukon to the courtroom, they're taking back control. Never back down, never say you lost the fight. 100 years of strategy emerging from the night. Can you see the pattern, the haunting of the play? The same old iron tactics, just a brand new day. To the air, a rebel in the suit of gray, sent to the barracks at 13 to find a different way. Your father's voice echoing, you're a killer or a ghost. In the New York military where the winners matter most. Iron sharpening iron, the higher area of the yard. Learning how to master boy and keep the spirit hard. The world is just a map of the victors and the slain. He learned to use a unicorn to navigate the pain. No room for the weak, no mercy for the fall. Build a persona hard, build a metaphorical wall. The feds are knocking, looking for a crack. Enter Roy Cohn, a shadow who never doubled back. A McCarthy-era mentor with a heart of legal stone. He taught the young apprentice how to defend the throne. Rule 1, never settle. Rule 2, strike them first. Rule 3, take the victory even when you're at your worst. Count a super million, keep the media in a trance. Turn a legal battle into the Cohn draft dance. It wasn't just the lawyer, it was the blueprint for the reign. The doctrine of the counterpunch, the master of the strain. So I'm asking the jury, in the court of history's street, is this a destiny or just a pattern on repeat? The barber's adapted in the lawyer's cold design. Does the past make the man, or is the man records are open, you decide.
All right, y'all. So I think you can hear me now. I'm sorry, I was having some sound issues earlier. Stuff is just going on with my computer and StreamYard, so I don't know. So I apologize. But yeah, so here we are, y'all. What's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl Golden. I'm back with another live. We're gonna be getting into today, which I thought would be some interesting things to talk about. If y'all interested in rocking with me and learning a little bit about the history of this man that is now the president of our United States. Y'all know how I typically am. I like to dig into the roots. I like to go back to the beginning. I want to find out where did it all start. You know what I mean? Because I feel like when it comes to us as individuals and people, where we are now and where we may even end up, a lot of that has a heavy impact um, to do with where we begin. So when we're children, when we're young teenagers, when we become young adults, experiences and traumas, all the things that we could possibly go through in this world, in this life, it makes us and molds us into the adults that we become, that we are currently walking around in the shell with. And so I wanted to do a video about that today when it comes to Trump, because y'all know I report on politics and I will be reporting on some more politics later on this evening, some updates and stuff like that. But I always have things to say, about Trump. And I know other people do as well. And one of the things that I wanted to do is not to give anybody a pass or anything like that, but because of like the psychologist, the inner psychologist in me, I like to figure out like how do people become how they are. You know what I mean? Like that's very interesting to me. It's something that I've always took an interest in. And so I did some research and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to tie these strings and pieces together to give us a better understanding of why we see the Donald Trump today that we have as our president in the United States, and why he moves and operates the way he does. But in order to do that, we got to go all the way back to the beginning. And so I know y'all think that sounds like it's going to be a long way to go, but it's not, y'all. I got it wrapped up for y'all in a real short version. That's also very informative and very educational. So we will be getting into that. But I do have a bonus video for you guys as well, that we'll be getting into at the end of the live. So y'all stay tuned for that. After the live is done, if you want to stay around for that bonus video and that bonus information, child, we got to talk about it and get into it. And two of my favorite people from one of my new favorite podcasts will be talking about this. We'll be talking some more about Charlie Kirk. So if y'all want to listen to that at the end, please stick around. But for the beginning of this live and what this live is actually about, we will be getting into the history of Donald Trump, starting from his grandfather, okay, who honestly, if y'all are not surprised, is actually an immigrant. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. So, the caveat of all of this stuff that is happening right now, it's really interesting to me, because the people who scream the loudest and hate the loudest, they don't understand that they benefit the most, or they wouldn't have had the opportunities or be in the places and spaces that they were if it wasn't for those said opportunities that some of their ancestors were granted. So we will get into that history so y'all can hear a little bit about that. We'll also talk about military school, right? Because I don't know, there are some people that may be familiar with and have, attended military school. You may know what that's like. You may understand that experience more than anybody else. I've never been to military school. But apparently Donald Trump is someone who was sent to military school. And so we'll be talking about that. And then we'll also be talking about how all of these things tie in together into maybe why and how he has become the person that he is today. And I just thought that was an interesting conversation for us to have on a deeper intellectual level of, actually breaking down how people operate, why they operate the way they operate, and how they wind up becoming the people that they are and doing the things that they do, and, all of those things. So we're going to be getting into that. Of course, I have some audios and some videos to show you guys. We will put those up in just a minute. I hope y'all like that song. I did make that song specifically for this video. Now, y'all know how I do. I feel as though when we're talking about stuff, we have to start from the very beginning, and then we will meet, at the current. And so, going to the very beginning, I want to get into this first video here. And this first video that I want to show y'all is about Frederick Trump. This is Donald Trump's grandfather, okay? And he is an immigrant. He was an immigrant. And so let's talk about that, because now we see so many, talks with Donald Trump being so heavy and so hard when it comes to immigrants in this country, in the United States. But where it all started when it comes to his bloodline and his family is him being, someone who comes from a family of immigrants. So we're going to go ahead and get into that, okay? So 1885, a 16-year-old named Frederick Trump fled Germany to avoid the draft and a dead-end job as a barber. He arrived in New York with nothing and headed straight for the gold rush. Not to mine for gold, but to mine for miners. He opened restaurants and hotels in the Yukon, operating on the rough, lawless frontier. The first family fortune was built on pure hustle. He was eventually deported back to America for his earlier draft dodging. And that relentless survival instinct became the bedrock of the Trump family business in Queens. So we're going to go ahead and get into a little bit of that history, y'all, if you care to watch it with me. I hope you enjoy it. But I do think everything should start from the beginning so we can know why we're in our current, or where things may possibly end, which we can't be sure of the ending, but we can at least have more understanding about the current. So let's go ahead and get into this. This is a little history video, and I will not play all of it. I'm going to play some of it, about Frederick Trump, the immigrant grandfather of Donald Trump. So let's go ahead and get this video up here, y'all. Play a little bit of this for y'all to hear.
It is the 7th of October, 1885. In the port of Bremen, in northern Germany, a ship, the SS Ida, is about to pull out of the harbor. It is newly built, launched 2 years earlier by Norddeutsche Lloyd, a German shipping company looking to meet the endless demand for passage from Germany to the Americas. Many head for Argentina, Brazil, Chile, or Canada. But the Ida is bound for New York City. There are over 1,000 people on board, just a fraction of the more than 1.4 million Germans who migrated to the US in the 1880s. Most of their names are barely known today. That is, except for one 16-year-old, a barber's apprentice from the village of Kallstadt. Although no one knows it, in October 1885, his decision to leave Germany will change the course of US history forever. The boy's name, Frederick Trump, patriarch of the Trump family. The man known to history as Frederick Trump was born on the 14th of March 1869 in the village of Kallstadt in the northwestern territory of the Kingdom of Bavaria. The German version of his name was Friedrich, and this is what he would have been called in Kallstadt, in western Germany in the Rhineland-Palatinate region. This area had been ruled for centuries as a territory of the House of Leiningen, a prominent German aristocratic family which controlled much of the region near the modern-day Franco-German border. Later, Kallstadt and the surrounding area were conquered by the French during the French Revolutionary Wars and subsequently became part of the Napoleonic Confederation of the Rhine. After the Napoleonic Wars, its fate remained unclear for a short period of time before it was given to the Kingdom of Bavaria in 1816, the dominant power in what is now southern Germany in the 19th century. This is important, as Frederick's life story was significantly influenced by the fact that the Kingdom of Bavaria retained compulsory military conscription for young men. This was even after the kingdom joined over 24 other German states to form the German Empire in January 1871, shortly before Frederick's second birthday. Frederick's father was Christian Johannes Trump. He was born in 1829 and joined the family business as a vintner, a wine producer in the Rhineland region that remains famous for its quality white wine. Christian Trump married a woman named Katharina Kober, and together they had 8 children, of which Frederick was the 6th. By the time he was born, 2 other sons, Johannes and Conrad, had both died in infancy. Frederick's other 5 siblings, Katharina, Jakob, Sibylla Louisa, Elisabetta, and Barbara, would all live relatively long lives. Frederick might have been born in Karlstadt, but the family's roots lay slightly further away in Germany. His grandfather on his father's side, Johannes Trump, was born in Bobenheim am Berg, north of Karlstadt and southwest of the larger town of Worms. He was born there in 1789, and he had consequently grown up against the backdrop of the French Revolutionary and Napoleonic Wars. Back then, the family name was Drumpft, spelled D-R-U-M-P-F-T. By the time Frederick moved to the United States as a teenager, it had become Trumpf, spelled T-R-U-M-P-F, while the F was later dropped in America to form the modern Trump family name. Further ancestors of Frederick had also lived in Bobenheim am Berg, and they had traditionally worked in the wine trade too. Frederick's earliest recorded ancestor on his father's side was Johann Philipp Drumpft, who lived in the late 17th century. Beyond this point, it becomes difficult to trace the genealogy of many families, especially so regarding those who lived outside of the larger towns. This is because the first national censuses only began to appear from the mid-18th and 19th centuries in Europe, and church records are often spotty. A certain Hans Drumpft, an itinerant lawyer, recorded in the Karlstadt and Bobenheim am Berg region as far back as 1608, was quite possibly a paternal ancestor of Frederick as well. The Trump family had a history of the male members dying relatively young. Frederick's grandfather, for instance, had died in 1836 when Christian Johannes was only a child. In turn, Christian Johannes died in the summer of 1877 at 48 years of age, having suffered from severe respiratory problems for many years. Frederick was only 8 years old at the time, and the family was left in a very difficult financial situation as a result of his father's premature death. Several different doctors had been consulted during Christian Johannes's lengthy illness, each failing to help him but leaving a hefty bill behind. They lived in a modest 2-story home on Frankenheimstrasse in Karlstadt, where Frederick shared a room with several siblings. He was apparently a sickly child, meaning that his mother avoided sending him off to work in the fields for long stretches of time. The family farmed a small plot of land growing grapes after Christian Johannes died. Instead, with the family facing penury, Katharina Trump sent Frederick off to the town of Frankenthal, about 20 kilometers to the east, when he turned 13. There, in 1883, he became an apprentice to a barber named Friedrich Lang. This period was a tough time for young people at work. Despite emerging laws when it came to child labor, teenagers were considered semi-adults, and Frederick worked 7 days a week in Frankenthal. He would open up Lang's shop in the mornings and sweep up hair in the evenings, while also learning to use a razor and the various alternate tools of the trade. By 1885, after 2 years and a bit of training, his apprenticeship was complete and he returned to Karlstad as a trained barber. He would not remain there for very long, as he quickly joined the enormous exodus of Germans to the Americas that was already underway in the late 19th century.
ChatGPT, what's
Frederick Trump was growing up against a backdrop of mass migration from the old world to the new. Europeans had first started migrating to the Americas at the very end of the 15th century, after the Spanish reached the Caribbean and established their first colonies there. The period prior to 1800 is often characterized as the age of colonization in the Americas. However, in reality, there were only a few million Europeans that migrated from Europe to the American colonies controlled by the Spanish, French, English, Portuguese, Dutch, and Danish in this era. This migration had also involved some Germans, notably the movement of German religious groups like the Baptists and Moravians to Pennsylvania from the 1680s onwards. While migration had been relatively small before 1800, the 19th and 20th centuries saw an explosion of European arrivals to the New World. Medical and dietary advances in Europe led to a sharp increase in life expectancies, and as population levels swelled, tens of millions of people began boarding the new steamships and heading off to live in Canada, the United States, and parts of Latin America. This migration was particularly acute from specific countries and often occurred during a window of several decades, in some cases as a result of persecution or hardship. For instance, the potato famine of the 1840s triggered the exodus of millions of Irish migrants to the New World. The Italian diaspora between 1860 and 1920 was similarly enormous, rising to 15 million people by most estimates. The new German Empire was one of the greatest sources of arrivals to the Americas from 1871 onwards. A large number headed for South American countries like Argentina, Chile, and Paraguay. The greatest share, however, came to the United States. In the 1880s alone, around 1.4 million Germans migrated to the US, spreading out from the ports of the East Coast to places like Texas, the Midwest, and the American West. This was the absolute peak of German migration to the United States, and Frederick Trump was one of those who, at this time, arrived on American shores. The exact circumstances of Frederick's decision to join the mass migration of his fellow Germans to the New World in the mid-1880s has to be inferred to an extent. This is because personal motives and thoughts are so rarely recorded for historians. When Frederick returned home to Karlstad in 1885, his family's financial fortunes had not greatly improved. Feeding an extra person was an expense, and, unfortunately, Karlstad was a small town where Frederick would find it difficult to support himself as a barber. Furthermore, as was so regularly the case when it came to migration to the New World in the 19th century, families moved gradually over a number of years. In Frederick's case, his older sister, Katharina, had left for New York City a year earlier to join her fiancé there, Fred Schuster, a figure who already had 2 cousins of his own living in America. Thus, Frederick would have some family in the city if he migrated. He left Karlstad in the early autumn and headed north to the port of Bremen. There he acquired a spot for the equivalent of $20 on board the SS Ida, which left for New York on the 7th of October 1885. Frederick spent 10 days on board the ship, a journey which was likely to have been very unpleasant given that few people had the luxury of bathing and food and drinking water were scarce for economy passengers. Having crossed the Atlantic, the steamship pulled into New York Harbor, and Frederick Trump transited through the immigration center at Castle Garden in Battery Park in Manhattan. The famous immigration center on Ellis Island was not to open until the beginning of 1892. In New York, Frederick quickly made his way to live with his sister and brother-in-law. They lived on Forsyth Street, which is near the intersection of the Bowery and Grand Street, slightly north of Chinatown and on the Lower East Side. Here he was surrounded by an enclave of German-American migrants. Migrants banded together in distinct areas of New York during those days of mass European migration. While this provided a sense of comfort, the apartment that Frederick and the Schusters lived in was extremely cramped and had been formed out of a larger apartment that had been divided in two. The apartment was stiflingly warm in summer, and a few months after Trump arrived, he would have started to see people sleeping on fire escape stairwells in the summer at night. This was a familiar sight in New York, one way in which people could escape the oppressive sauna-like conditions of their cramped apartments in the Manhattan summer.
So, you're the young knight who's brought chaos.
Trump was soon a veteran employee in the city. His sister and brother-in-law had helped him find a job in a barber shop before he even arrived at New York. He had also started cutting hair and shaving faces within days of stepping off the boat. A further change in living conditions occurred in May 1886, when the family moved uptown to East 17th Street, near Stuyvesant Square Park. This move occurred after another of Frederick's siblings, Louise or Louisa, joined them in New York, and the wider Trump-Schuster family earnings increased to allow them to live in a larger apartment. This dispensation lasted for less than a year before a more dramatic move uptown to the corner of 104th Street. This was to an even more spacious apartment, though it required Frederick to make a longer trip downtown each day to his work as a barber. It was also soon tinged with sadness for the extended family. Not long after moving in, Frederick's niece, Emma Katharina, who was only 2 years old and was the first member of the extended Trump family born in the United States, contracted meningitis and died soon afterwards. Such was the precarious nature of life in the sprawling tenements of late Gilded Age New York. Frederick remained in New York City until 1891. Then, as he moved into his 20s, he made the decision to head out west. This was towards the later stages of the history of the American West. The West had been opened up at the end of the 1840s as a number of developments initiated a period of huge migration west of the Great Lakes and the Mississippi River. First, the U.S. annexed the Republic of Texas in the final days of 1845. This directly led to the American-Mexican War of 1846 to 1848, which ended in the U.S. acquiring territory all the way west to California and Oregon. The beginning of the California Gold Rush in the months following the war, and measures like the Homestead Act.
All right, y'all. So real quick, y'all know something that I talk about all the time that I believe to be true because I listen to said individual always say things referencing the 1800s. Do you believe, right? And bear with me now. In a lot of families and stuff like that, you know, you gather together, you gather around what? The fireplace, you gather at the mansion, wherever it is you're gathering. And when your family members, such as elders, are still alive and they're there and you spend time with them, they tell these historical stories of things that have happened in their lives, their journeys, how things were during the times where they lived. And so by listening to this history and this video of this history, and this is Trump's grandfather, right? His grandfather, not his father, but his grandfather. it's just making me seem like he probably was one of those young little kids that if he had the opportunity to be around his grandfather and spend time wherever it is they reside and live at the probably elder years that the man was at during that time, he probably sat around and told stories about his journey and his, uh, transactions throughout life. And a little young man probably sitting there listening to all of that, and then even some of that getting passed down, even after he may no longer be with us, still are conversations that are probably had at the Thanksgiving table, the Christmas table, when the family joins together for that, get talked about this type of history. And so when we hear this type of history, and we know and we're seeing now that this is what it was, and we always hear this individual referencing back to those times, saying that, make America great again, go back to those times, wants to do things in that way. Do you think that this does not tie into why this individual may be so deeply, obsessed and gun ho on wanting to see basically a world that looked like maybe this great big world and society that his grandfather talked about? But of course, we would have to get to the end of the video to see the greatness of it all, because within the beginning, it shows the journey towards that. But at some point, I believe he did get to a point where, things were moving and operating and shaking and baking, pretty great. And probably benefit for him and others like himself. But the importance of all of this that I want y'all to remember is this is a individual that was not from the United States of America. This is an individual that was an immigrant, and this is the grandfather of Donald Trump, originally a immigrant. Okay, so I just wanted to bring all of that to the forefront a little bit for y'all to hear and realize, because we see what's going on, and we see how what type of thumbs and stuff he trying to roll with, and how he feels and treats people that are not necessarily from this country. But it's very interesting that you have such a disdain for people that are not from this country, that want to come to this country to make something better of themselves, when your own grandfather did the same thing. That's just my point in all of this, y'all, when it goes back to really tapping into history. But let's keep going. Let's hear some more. Let's see what else we can derive from this video.
Act of 1862 brought millions of settlers to the American West between the 1850s and 1880s. These settlers were often drawn by oil, gold, and silver rushes in places like the Black Hills of the Dakota Territory and Tombstone, Arizona. The Pacific Northwest region experienced some of the lowest levels of migration throughout this period. This was for numerous reasons, most notably the lack of a major gold, silver, or oil rush between the 1850s and 1880s, and the comparatively cooler and wetter climate there. Consequently, Washington state was not admitted to the Union until 1889, when it became the 42nd state.
So think of it as like a TV ad with a catalog component, where I can choose on the Roku app, and immediately it's going to send me a text that comes from Roku, and it just says, hey, basically you just watch this, and we're going to want to make sure that you get this. So you can create your background color, you can sort of customize your thing. It might be subscribe, shop now, whatever it is. And then you can add a logo or an image in the back, and then they get a text message. And then right from there, the person's able to click the link. In my opinion, I would send them to a specific landing page or a URL with a UTM, so you can identify how that traffic.
Things were changing, though, by the time Frederick reached the US in 1885. Seattle had grown from a small town of around 3,500 people in 1880 to a major urban center of over 40,000 people in 1890. This growth was in spite of the fact that the city saw the Great Seattle Fire in 1889. Thus, In the 1880s and early 1890s, the newly created Washington state and its towns and cities were fast becoming new focal points of settlement. This was due to the insatiable thirst for land, with more and more people flooding into the emerging superpower of the Western Hemisphere. These people continued to come from places like Ireland, Italy, Poland, Scandinavia, and Trump's native Germany. Frederick joined the migration and decided to seek his fortune out west in the early 1890s. There he would seek to make the most of vast opportunities available in a rapidly developing economy. Trump's first port of call out west was Seattle. Here the city was rebuilding and expanding fast after the Great Fire of 1889. Trump had saved carefully during his 6 years in New York, and when he arrived at Washington state, he was able to spend $600 purchasing an establishment known as the Dairy Restaurant. The restaurant was situated at 208 Washington Street in Seattle, a small business with 24 chairs, 24 stools, a cash register, and one range oven for cooking on. In shiny new lettering outside, he had a sign erected reading, "Dairy Restaurant, Proprietor Fred Trump." Much of what followed is conjectural rather than known beyond absolute doubt. Frederick had acquired a small establishment in a part of Seattle where a huge number of restaurants and saloons doubled as brothels. It was not uncommon for even very modestly sized establishments like the Dairy Restaurant. Many such establishments had 1 or 2 rooms upstairs, which the proprietor of the restaurant downstairs either rented out to women or actively organized to provide clients for her. It is unlikely that Frederick, who was living in a tiny apartment himself in Seattle and had to try every means necessary to make a decent living, was any different in how he ran his establishment. Not long after he arrived at Seattle, he also acquired his naturalization papers. This made him eligible to vote for the first time, which he did on the 8th of November 1892 in the US presidential election. We don't know who he voted for. What we do know is that, in a peculiar coincidence, Grover Cleveland, who had been US president already between 1885 and 1889, won the election. His feat in becoming the first man to serve 2 non-consecutive terms as president would only be equaled by one other man, Frederick Trump's grandson, Donald, when he won election at the end of 2024. Frederick's decision to head out west to Washington state appears to have been driven by a general trend of migration to the Pacific Northwest in the 1880s and early 1890s. However, there was soon an increased incentive towards migration to this region, with some going even further north of the border to Canada. Ever since the early 1880s, gold and silver prospectors had been assessing sites along the Yukon River in western Canada and had reported small finds of precious metals. These were not substantial enough to cause a vast gold or silver rush of any kind, but they did encourage further investigation of the river streams and creeks and foothills of the Pacific Northwest. This was the case in the United States, Canada, or Alaska. Eventually, in mid-August 1896, a substantial gold discovery was made in the Klondike region of Yukon in Canada. Within weeks, word had reached the towns and cities of the Pacific Coast region, and by 1897, thousands of people were making their way to the region. The renaming of sites with place names like Bonanza Creek and El Dorado Creek, names that promised vast riches for those willing to brave the cold climate of Yukon, likely incited many more migrants to the northwest. Way stations developed along the migration routes in tandem in British Columbia, the huge region of Western Canada between Washington state in the south and the Yukon Territory in the north. As the Klondike Gold Rush drew tens of thousands of settlers from California and other parts of the American West north to British Columbia and onwards to Yukon, Frederick moved northwards himself. He had little intention of becoming a gold prospector, though he occasionally dabbled in this too. He instead realized that the most secure way to become wealthy during a gold rush isn't to look for the precious metal oneself. Rather, Trump would sell tools to those drawn by the allure of the shiny ore. What's more, he...
All right, y'all. So I'm going to stop the video right there. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick song break. After the song break, we're going to have to move right along to the next video because, like I said, this one is very long. But if you guys want to check this out for yourself, I will have the details for this video and the links to this video in my description box so you can watch the entire thing yourself. I think it will be a good thing for you to watch from beginning to end to get more of an insight, and a little bit of background of Trump's history. So we're going to go ahead and stop this right here. And then we're going to get into our next video, which is going to be basically all about the fight is what they call it. That's the title of the video. Talk about that in just a moment. How Donald Trump's politics playbook began. Okay, the choice of 2024 frontline. And then we'll also be getting, wow, do we not talk about this all the time, y'all? Bullies and how, you either are a bully or you're a victim of a bully and it can kind of make you turn out a certain type of way. Anyway, we'll talk about how childhood and military school shaped Donald Trump. And we'll get into all of that in just a moment with some videos that I have to show y'all. But let's take a quick song break and we'll be right back.
A barber's boy with a dream and a lie. Underneath the German sun, watching the draft go by. 16 years of age, Friedrich fled to Bavaria in line to find a brand new alchemy and a different kind of mind. He didn't leave hope for gold in the Yukon's frozen breath. He fed the men who hungered, he danced on the edge of death. Operating in the shadows where the law refused to go. Building wealth from the chaos and the frontier steady flow. Deported by the crown of wanderers seeking the shore. He planted the seeds in Queens, then opened the family door. The hustle's in the marrow, the survival's in the blood. A dynasty rising up from the frontier in the mud. It's the making of a fighter, the phantom in the soul. From the Yukon to the courtroom, they're taking back control. Never back down, never say you lost the fight. 100 years of strategy emerging from the night. Can you see the pattern? The haunting of the plague. The same old iron tactic, just a brand new day. Fast forward to the era, rebel in the suit of gray. Sent to the barracks at 13 to find a different way. A father's voice echoing, you're a killer or a ghost. In the New York military where the winners matter most. Iron sharpening iron, the hierarchy of the yard. Learning how to master void and keep the spirit hard. Blurry limbs get faster. More friends, it's just a map for the victors and the slain. He learned to use the uniform to navigate the pain. No room for the weak, no mercy for the fall. Build a persona, I build a metaphorical wall. 73 of venture packing, looking for a crack. Enter Cohn, the shadow who never doubled back. A McCarthy-era mentor with a heart of legal stone. He taught the young apprentice how to defend the throne. Rule 1, never settle. Rule 2, strike him first. Rule 3, claim the victory, even when you're at your worst. Counter sue for millions, keep the media in a trance. Turn a legal battle into a choreographed dance. It wasn't just a lawyer, it was the blueprint for the reign. The doctrine of the counterpunch, the master of the strange.
I'm asking the jury, in the court of history's street, is this a destiny? Or just a pattern on repeat? The barber, the cadet, and the lawyer's cold design. Does the past make the man? Or is the man the end of the line?
First specializer, dying with the mornings and shorty spill.
And this is the
In 1992, I hosted a special show in New York where viewers asked a lot of questions about their favorite celebrities. Many, of course, were interested in Donald Trump and what he was like as a young boy growing up in Queens. I managed to catch up with Donald's parents, Mary and Fred Trump, and asked them what was Donald's favorite game as a child.
He played Monopoly. Yes, indeed. He played with his brother.
Yeah.
He played with Robert. But more than Monopoly, he played with building blocks.
Ooh.
Always with building blocks.
But Donald Trump's childhood was much more complicated. Early on, a family crisis. His mother seriously ill.
When he was 2.5, my grandmother got very ill. Donald, who was at a very, very critical point in his development as a child, was essentially abandoned by her. He may not entirely trust women. He finds it difficult, if not impossible, to connect with them on any deep level, because I don't believe he ever was able to with her.
When you ask him about how she showed her love, he has nothing to say. The complexity of that relationship, I think, plays out through all of his relationships with women throughout his life. With one wife after another, there is an inability to reach any recognizable level of intimacy.
Young Donald had his own crisis, finding his place in a family dominated by his father, Fred, a stern and demanding real estate developer.
I strongly suspect that he had a relationship with his father that accounts for a lot of what he became. And his father was a very brutal guy. He was a tough, hard driving guy who had very, very little emotional intelligence, to use today's terms.
Donald's father's overall message to his children was, and it was a very different message to the boys than to the girls. To the boys was compete, win, be a killer. Do what you have to win.
Inside the family, a harsh game of apprentice. Who would take over Fred's empire? The first in line wasn't Donald. It was his older brother, Freddie.
My father was sensitive. He was kind and generous. He liked hanging out with his friends who adored him. And maybe worst of all, although it's hard to say, he had interest outside of the family business. My grandfather understood none of that.
Their father said Freddie wasn't a killer. He wanted to fly airplanes for a living. Donald thought that was crazy.
They could not understand why Fred did not go into the family business and be a builder like their father was. But Fred wanted to be a pilot, and Donald looked at that and said, well, that's sort of like being a bus driver. Why would you want to be a pilot?
Donald watched as Freddie was cast out.
My dad couldn't do anything right, and my grandfather made his life miserable. He was frustrated, and he began to realize that it wasn't going anywhere.
His life ended early in alcoholism and poor health. Through the years, Donald would take a much different path.
He wanted to avoid my father's fate of, abuse and humiliation at the hands of his father. He took that lesson to heart.
He was determined to live up to his father's ideal, be a killer. But he was also tempestuous, impulsive, and at 13, his father sent him to military school.
He must have said, this kid's going to grow up in a tough world, really tough world. And if I want him to succeed, he's going to have to be tough.
He talks about it as almost this rite of passage. He said to me that when he arrived at the military academy, for the first time in his life, someone slapped him in the face when he got out of line.
It would be a 5-year lesson in how to be a bully.
Donald Trump yelled at his classmates. He pushed them around. He even used a broomstick as a weapon against classmates who didn't listen to him when he told them what to do.
All of us were part of this culture of you beat on kids when they didn't do the right thing.
You got hit, you might have gotten slammed against the wall, you were put you got put artificially into fights.
He became a leader of the cadets. He became one of the student leaders who had a number of kids under him in the dormitories, and he ruled the dormitory life with an iron fist.
Inside that brutal world, Donald had found his place.
His mother told me that he was never homesick. He loved it. He loved all that stuff because it was also really competitive. Other kids didn't really like him all that much. He wasn't that popular because he was so competitive. He was always looking for the edge, but it was a environment that he thrived in.
With his father and mother by his side, Donald graduated. He'd become a killer, learned the power of bullying to get ahead, a method he'd carry into the future.
All right, y'all. So that was just one of the first videos that I wanted to show y'all. I have another one that I'm going to show you as well. So we're moving right along down the timeline as far as, you know, age and maturing and things of that nature. But as you've seen from that first video, even within military school, you already seen what they said as far as how this individual, we're talking about Donald Trump, used to move and operate very much like a bully. And when we watch him now, being our now president of the United States, there's still this bully energy and persona inside him. But as we can see, it derives back from a very long period of time ago when he was young, just a young boy, teenage boy, things of that nature. And so that's why I think all of that stuff is very important for us to pay attention to and talk about in some instances. Not that I am any type of, you know, official or whatnot when it comes to psychology or anything like that, but our psychology of us, that the makeup of us, the things that we experience, the traumas that we go through, things that we even can display from when we're very, very young. It can also tie into who we are when we become adults and how we move and operate. And so that's just why I wanted to show y'all a few of these clips and videos today, because even myself was curious, how did this man get like this? Why is he like this? Like, I don't understand. But when you see some of these things that date back even that far, right, in young life and age, you see this may be what that person was always, you know, like anyway, or certain things that they've been through or was forced into being, or, you know what I mean, what they were, examples that were set for them. This is how they move and operate based off of those things sometimes. And so it really brings you a lot of more context as to how someone can be, how they operate, and why they are the way they are. So let's get into this second video. We're going to move along. I'm going to fast forward a little bit because now we're going to get into how he really came into, you know, really having this desire to be in politics and business and all of those things. So this video is also from a younger, not as young as you may think and not as young as we've seen in the other video. Pretty much an adult, but in the younger years of his life. And there were other things that happened and people that came into his life that influenced him as well. And I think he took a lot of pages from the books of those lessons and years during his life. So let's go ahead and get into this video. This is all about the fight, how Donald Trump's political playbook began. Let's get into it.
Donald Trump was his father's apprentice, heir to a multi-million-dollar real estate organization.
They had a vast empire in Queens and Brooklyn of residences and rental apartments. I mean, it was really quite an establishment.
But early on, there was a crisis.
There came a day in 1973 when the federal government sued Donald and Fred by name and their company for racial bias. This was one of the greatest racial bias cases of its time.
This was a particularly egregious case because the Trump organization had allegedly put large C's to connote people of color who were applying for apartments.
The government had him nailed. They had the Trump organization nailed. There were multiple Trump employees who confessed that they had been instructed to divert Black applicants for apartments, to discourage them, to tell them that apartments had been rented when they hadn't been.
Donald Trump's regular lawyers tell him, settle it, just move on, do the right thing, do what you're supposed to do under the law. And Trump's not happy with that advice.
He wanted to fight back. He went looking for a new lawyer in Manhattan.
One of the places to see and be seen in Manhattan was called Le Club. Donald Trump walked in, and Roy Cohn was there holding court, as he often did. And Trump said, you know, I know about you. Can I ask you a question?
Roy Cohn had 20 years of being a really aggressive, no holds barred, go for the jugular, fight back. Anybody says something to you, throw it back at them guy. He was famous for that behavior.
And as legend has it, Donald stuck out his hand and introduced himself and said, my father is being sued by the Justice Department over this race discrimination. What should we do?
And he said, listen, I've spent 2 days with these establishment law firms about a case we have. It was a civil rights case or something. And they're all telling us, give up, do this, sign a decree and all of that. He says, I followed your career and you're a little bit crazy like I am, and you stand up to the establishment. Can I come see you? And I said, sure.
When they met, Roy said to him, you might be guilty. It doesn't matter. Go after the Justice Department. Don't ever admit guilt.
Fight it. You'll kill them. Just deny everything and fight. And Trump was totally taken by that, and he hired Roy Cohn as his lawyer.
That was a defining moment for Donald Trump. Donald Trump was on the ropes. There was no doubt they discriminated. There's no doubt there was wrongdoing. And yet, Roy Cohn showed him that you can turn around a situation just by ignoring the facts and going after your attacker. Trump countersued the Justice Department for $100 million.
I have never, nor has anyone in our organization ever, to the best of my knowledge, discriminated or shown bias in renting our apartments.
This is a classic example of where Trump begins to demonstrate something he talks about all the time today, which is he's a counterpuncher. So somebody comes out after him and says that he's done something nefarious and horrible, and he just goes.
And I also just want to put in mind for people, if you know anything about the psychological field, this is called disassociation. When you disassociate with things that are real, with things that really happen, and with things that you have done, you disassociate. So this is actually sometimes in the psychological field a condition that some people are actually, diagnosed with. It's called dissociative disorder. I just wanted to put that out there just for some, additional facts. But we're looking at it and we're listening to it right now in this video as a tactic or a scheme. When you look at it on a psychological level, when you have doctors and people who practice, this type of work in medicine, and trust me, I know when it comes to psychology, this is dissociative disorder, where you disassociate from things, whatever it is, you disassociate because you basically throw your hands up in the ceiling and say, you have nothing to do with it. You didn't do it. You're not that person. That's not your fault. That's not what you did. Like, it's constant denial and disassociation from reality. And so I ain't no doctor or nothing like that. I've just worked in these fields and stuff, and I know a few things. But do y'all hear what's being said? And all of this wasn't taught to this person, or, this wasn't something that was born or derived in this person from birth. This was taught to this person by other probably people that are movers and shakers. We understand that. And a lot of people like to more so celebrate the fact that these people are movers and shakers and businessmen and sharks and things of that nature. But a lot of time it actually more so ties into a psychological issue deeper that I think a lot of people never get evaluated, get checks for, or not checks, but get checked for, like evaluations for, or be able to accept that they have. Their psychological disorders, dissociative disorder is a real thing. You just pull yourself up out of it like it never happened. You never did it. It doesn't exist. You don't know what people are talking about. Ties into a lot of other psychological disorders as well. A lot of them go hand in hand. But anyway, moving on. Let's keep playing some more of the video. But as you can see, this was a grooming, in a sense, from someone that this person, looked up to, a young Trump looked up to and seen was a mover and a shaker and a sheezer and a shyster and all of the things, right? And he took some advice from that person. And ever since he took that advice, as we see him moving, even now in his current day and age, as being president of the United States, he operates and responds to things in the same exact way. He never pulled away from that learning technique. And if that learning technique is a business mantra, or if it's just you're letting someone who may possibly have some type of psychological issue pass their psychological issue down to you, we can't be sure. And I'm not speaking on any of that because I'm not a professional to speak on any of that. But this is what we're seeing. And I like to talk about these things, not just in the case of him, but in the case of all of us as people, even myself included, that there are sometimes things that get passed down to us and we don't know if they're just survival techniques or if they're things that our family members or people and our loved ones are projecting onto us that stem from their own psychological or mental issues. I think that's something that needs to be dug into a little bit deeper because we do pass those things down from time to time. But we call it, this is just how I parent. This is just how I move. This is just how I operate. This is just how I run my business. But what if some of the things that you incorporate in doing those things is actually stemming from psychological issues? You are now passing psychological issues down to another individual, and they're adapting those same psychological issues. It's a question. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Anyway, let's keep going.
Goes back at them with all guns blazing, boom, 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 and admits nothing, never admit anything, never say you made a mistake, just keep coming.
His countersuit didn't work, and in fact, he did end up quietly settling out of court. But Roy went on the offensive and said, this is a victory. Trump was vindicated. He knew before anybody else did that the court of public opinion is often more important than a court of law. The lesson from Roy Cohn was, don't go the way the establishment does. Don't play by the rules.
Donald Trump learned a lot of things from Roy Cohn, but I think that you could kind of sum it up by saying that bullying works really well. If you punch back, most people withdraw and just look at what you can get away with.
For Donald Trump, Roy Cohn's playbook would become a guide to life, business, and politics.
A witch hunt, a horrible, horrible, disgusting witch hunt. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Cohn's approach to life that he conveys to Trump is you fight back, and you fight dirty if you have to. Trump articulates this.
And we fight like hell. And if you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore.
If somebody attacks him, he attacks them back, he says, 10 times as hard. He's not about diplomacy. He's not about negotiation. He is all about the fight.
All right, y'all. So, y'all seen that video. That's basically all that, I really have. I did have one more that I wanted to play for you guys when it comes to Trump and some of the things that was being said, as far as, his upbringing and his development. We'll go ahead. I guess we can get into that. We got a little bit more time. And so let me go ahead and pull that up for you guys. But I don't know. What do y'all think about this? Like, you can speak on it on one way or the other. You know what I mean? Like, I would suggest that you guys watch the full video of his grandfather from beginning to end. I don't know if y'all want me to play any more of that for you, so you can see a little history about that. But yeah, if you play some of these videos, you'll see, like, this is where basically all of this started. It started very, very long ago, and he's still moving and operating this way. And so it's just, what are we supposed to think? What are we supposed to take from this? There's not a lot of people that look into it, or not a lot of people that pay attention to it, but I'm telling you for sure, like, what I know working in the psychological field and the medical field, that a lot of this stuff is more so psychological than just a, personality issue or just a-hole. These people become who they are, and not even just to point the fingers at others, because all of us have a tinge of this at some point. But these people become who they are based off of the things that they bear witness to, especially when they're young, and their children and the minds are most, susceptible to taking in images and ideas and things of that nature. Like, that is a real thing. That's a serious thing. It's a human thing. And yeah, so for me, sometimes, I like to do weird stuff like that and go back and see if I can find where did this all start and begin. The same thing like when it comes to Diddy, I was very much interested in doing that as well. And I did it myself. I went in to go look at some of those things. It's not to say that the courts care or the people care, but just for my own knowledge, I like to go in and look and see, how did this person become who they are now? There must have been a plethora of things that they experienced, they witnessed, they went through, or they participated in, to lead them to the person that they've become in their adult life, whether that's older adult life or early adult life. It can be either one. But let me play this video for y'all real quick. And then after this, I'm going to play my bonus video that I got for y'all. We're going to get into a few interesting things about a whistleblower. And we're going to be talking about some things wrapped around a whistleblower that has exposed the FBI over the Charlie Kirk unaliving and Erica Kirk and her running her scams. And so we'll hear, from that, when it comes to that video, from none other than the iHip Network. I love them. Oh my God, they're so good. They say all the things that I want to say, y'all. I promise you they do. But let me go ahead and play this video for y'all real quick. We'll finish off some of this Trump stuff, and then we'll get into that Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk.
It's tough to separate Donald Trump from his hometown of New York City. In fact, his family has a long history in the Big Apple, starting with his grandparents. Friedrich and Elizabeth Trump were both born in Kallstadt, Germany, and actually grew up across the street from one another. In the 1880s, Friedrich ventured to North America, making a small fortune during Alaska's gold rush, operating restaurants and brothels. After Friedrich returned to Germany and married Elizabeth in 1902, the young couple left for a place.
You see what I'm saying? Like, this is very serious. And I know people be like, oh my God, you're so boring, you're so dumb. I'm not dumb. I'm telling you for real. His grandparents, the grandmother and the grandfather child, the man was out there running scam and making money. And guess what grandma was doing, or great grandma was doing? Running a brothel. And you look at how the man interacts and treats women and thinks about women. Y'all think this don't derive back to the beginning? There's a movie. There's multiple movies, but there's a movie. If y'all ever seen the movie, or oh my God, what is her name? My favorite singer. There are movies of some very popular singers. The names are getting away from me right now. But I remember several of them, one being male and one being female. And their mothers, this was the only jobs, I guess, that they could get or they could take. And they ran brothels, which we know what brothels are. They're whorehouses, right? And you think about how all of that is tied into how someone grows up, how they move and operate. Now, they could go all the way opposite, the other direction, because they don't like any of that. They're tired of it. They see it so much, they don't want to see it anymore. And then you can have some that are just basically accustomed to it. And then when they grow up and they become older, they pour into it. They don't think there's anything wrong with it because it's what they grew up seeing their whole life, so they think it's normal. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm saying. These type of things like this are things that can make or break a person. They can make or shake a personality. You'll grow up doing things even subconsciously, honestly, sometimes, because you don't think there's anything wrong with it because you've seen so much of it during your life. So now we have even more information here within this video that there were brothels. And I know a lot of people saying, oh, well, this is his grandparents. Well, he wasn't alive when his grandparents passed things down to the parents. Parents passed things down to their children. Like, come on, y'all. Y'all know how generational curses work. Come on. Let's be real about that. And so we need to pay attention to these things. It's not an excuse for people. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not making no excuses, and that's not the reason why I'm doing this live. I'm just was trying to dig in a little deeper and find out a little bit more information about this individual. I mean, this is the type of research that we're supposed to do, honestly, and I think it's okay to do. If this going to be your president of the United States that's wreaking havoc and harm over the country and people that live in it, then, sir, I need to know a little bit more about you. Deeper. Yeah, that's how I feel. So I'll just look the stuff up.
It's where all immigrants could find a home, New York City. The city part of that was relatively new. The 5 boroughs had only formally incorporated 4 years prior. The Trumps first settled in with Friedrich's sister in Morrisania, a rapidly growing German neighborhood in the Bronx. Today, a nail salon occupies their old address. But even though they lived amongst their countrymen, Elizabeth quickly became homesick. After giving birth to their first child, also named Elizabeth in 1904, the growing family traveled back to Deutschland. But the German government wouldn't allow Friedrich to regain his citizenship, claiming he had only left for America in the first place to avoid the German Empire's mandatory military service. So, back to New York it was. They found their next home again in the Bronx, an apartment building that still stands today. Now home to a liquor store. Elizabeth soon gave birth to their second child and first son, Frederick Christ, although he was known as Fred from an early age. A third child, John George, would be born 2 years later. To provide for his young family, Friedrich set up a barber shop in Lower Manhattan, shaving and trimming men of finance at 60 Wall Street, now the headquarters of Deutsche Bank. But Friedrich wouldn't be satisfied with cutting rich men's hair for long. He wanted to be the one in the chair. So, in September 1908, he bought his first property as an investment, a 2-story dwelling in the Woodhaven neighborhood of Queens. To supplement his income, he took up a job as manager at the German-owned Medallion Hotel in Midtown Manhattan. The hotel has since been demolished, and the property now exists as a parking lot. Soon after, the whole Trump family moved to Queens to be closer to Friedrich's real estate interests, settling in a 2-story house in Woodhaven. Still a house today. All was good for the Trumps, but like many German immigrants in the U.S., they faced extreme bias after the outbreak of World War I. To appear more American, Friedrich Trump became Frederick Trump. Interestingly, his son Fred Trump would go on to further reject his German ancestry, claiming the family was Swedish in order to appeal to Jewish renters, a claim continued by his son well into the future. Back in 1918, America experienced one of its most dangerous epidemics, the Spanish flu. Influenza killed over 21 million people worldwide that year, including Frederick Trump. Elizabeth went on to manage her deceased husband's budding real estate company, now entitled Elizabeth Trump and Son, the son being Fred. Until he was of age, Elizabeth bought and sold property, built homes, and arranged mortgages, all while sewing for her neighbors on the side. Fred soon took over the business, and over the course of several decades, built it into the family empire his son Donald would inherit.
All right, we're going to take a quick song break, and I'll be right back. I got one more video to show y'all before we get into these whistleblowers, child. We got to get into that video. That one is really interesting. We will be right back after this song.
Stood up tall for the oath they swore to give their all. They spoke of orders, lawful and true. A clear message meant for me and you. But the air grew cold and the line was crossed. A furious price at any cost. A simple warning, clear and bright. Met with a fury late one night. The headline screams, chilling sound. Political peace is nowhere found. Punishable by death. The message read, fire lit under every head. On a digital stage, turning the Constitution's page.
14,000 apartments in 39 different buildings, all mostly white tenants. That is until the Department of Justice took notice in 1973 and slammed Donald Trump and his father, Fred Trump, with a lawsuit. Trump management was charged with discriminating against African Americans and breaking federal law. Donald Trump, then just 27, was president of the company. The Department of Justice accused the Trumps of violating the Fair Housing Act, arguing they were turning away renters based on race and color. Who tipped them off? Local activists, so-called testers, posing as potential renters at Trump's buildings, mainly in Brooklyn and Queens. Elise Goldweber was a lawyer for the DOJ's Fair Housing section at the time and was called on to handle the Trump case.
When the black testers came, they were shown, they may have been shown apartments, but were told nothing was available. Whereas when the white testers came, yes, there were things that were available. That would be the norm.
And if the Trumps did rent to a black person, Goldweber recalls, they would do so only at one building in Brooklyn, reserving the other buildings for white tenants.
That the white people would live in Trump Village and the people of color would live in Flatbush.
And according to the Justice Department, they even had a secret coding system to do it, a racial code. Here's how.
Some of the applications were marked with a C, which we learned that it meant colored, so that the prospective tenants who had come in were noted to be colored.
Yes, you heard her right. The Department of Justice alleged applications submitted by prospective African American renters were designated with a secret code, such as C for colored, to indicate a black person was looking to rent. In true Trump fashion, Donald Trump hit back, calling the government's accusations absolutely ridiculous and telling the court, "I have never, nor has anyone in my organization ever, to the best of my knowledge, discriminated or shown bias in the renting of our apartments." Trump's lawyers said the government's suit failed to give names, addresses, or specific incidences of discrimination. Claiming the lawsuit caused substantial damage to their business and reputation, Trump took the most unusual step of suing the Justice Department for defamation, seeking $100 million in damages. But that countersuit was tossed out by the judge. Even so, the Trump family maintained they never discriminated based on color, but were instead trying to avoid renting to people on welfare. 2 years later, in 1975, Trump and his father settled the case, agreeing not to discriminate against anyone. They also promised to advertise in publications aimed at minorities, familiarize themselves with the details of the Fair Housing Act, and notify civil rights groups of apartment vacancies. The Department of Justice claimed victory, but the Trumps never admitted any wrongdoing, reportedly noting the settlement was in no way an admission of a violation.
ChatGPT, can I make money online with $0?
Yes, you can.
All right, y'all. So you heard a bit of that. I don't know, if you've seen it before, if you heard it before, if you watched it before. This is literally the history, right, of like Trump and his father and his family. This is what has happened historically in the past. And so, not even that far back, this is individuals that say they were playing games, okay, to where they weren't renting to black people in New York City. And yeah, there was a lawsuit that was placed against them. People went to court against them. And per usual, how they do is, they wiggle and pay their way out of the crimes that they commit and the wrongs that they commit. And so is there anything new? Is there anything new? Like, if we watch how Trump moves and operates in this current day, and we're listening to some of this history, so I wanted to play this history for y'all. Do y'all see any difference? And do you also see where he got it from, where he learned it from, who taught him how to move and operate this way? This is the whole importance of why I'm playing this video in this live, for us to put two and two together. Because in life, you have to be able to put two and two together sometimes to get down to an understanding for things that you just don't understand. You have to go and dig for the roots, the research, where it all began. This is nothing new. This has been going on for a long period of time. I'm talking about from grandfather to father to now Trump. They all move and operate in the same way. And let me go ahead and play some more of this because I want to really drive it home for people that this is how these people move and operate and have been for a long, very period of time. Okay, it's in the bloodline. What are we confused about? Sometimes I get very upset because I feel like that we are in a place where they are putting things in place to make us dumb ourselves down or act like we're dumb. But one thing that I will never do and I'll never be is dumb. And so people will not play in front of my face when it comes to these type of things. And so I have to go through these lengths, right? To go and dig up histories, dig up facts, dig up things to bring to the surface, to show to people, to put it in their face so y'all can see when I have my talking points and I'm saying what I know to be true, I'm telling you for a reason. And hopefully, after you learn from these things as well, you will no longer be in the dark also. So let's just go ahead and do it since it's going to be one of those type of lives. Let's pull this one back up. We're going to go back again, right? We're going to go all the way back to the beginning. Remember, this is the grandfather. Let's look how he move and operate and then compare it to what we see going on right now. Okay, let's do that.
He would put a roof over their heads and meals in their stomachs.
Alaska Energy Metals is on a mission to unlock one of the largest untapped nickel and critical mineral deposits in the U.S.
Trump left Seattle in the spring of 1894 to seek his fortune in the mining towns of the Pacific Northwest. The Klondike Gold Rush had not commenced yet, but a mining camp had developed not far from Seattle at Monte Cristo. Here, a syndicate in which the oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller was involved was actively mining for gold and silver on the slopes of the Cascade Range. Trump chose this location to open a restaurant and hotel, which again may have doubled as a brothel. He spent several years here before it became clear that the Monte Cristo prospect was a dead end, and the mining settlement slowly turned into a ghost town. Trump consequently closed up his establishment and joined the exodus further north as the Klondike Gold Rush commenced. He eventually settled at the town of Bennett, which emerged in the far northwest of British Columbia, right near the border with the Yukon Territory. This was one of the last major sites for intrepid gold prospectors to stop at before they braved the increasingly cold and harsh terrain of Yukon. In Bennett, Frederick used the money he had made further south and his know-how about the hospitality industry to set up the new Arctic restaurant and hotel. He had a partner here, Ernest Levin. The duo were like everyone else in the area in making the most of local resources. They initially sold horse meat retrieved from horses that had died from the cold on the Northern Trail. However, over time, as Bennett grew and conditions improved, they spruced up their offerings, and the Arctic Hotel and Restaurant soon garnered a reputation as one of the better eateries in the frontier mining town. The influx of money into the region as gold wealth was acquired meant that by 1898, the Arctic was advertising that it sold every delicacy on the market, including fresh oysters. Women also rented out rooms here by the hour. Bedrooms came complete with small weighing scales, where tiny amounts of gold dust could be measured out to pay for their services. On that note, it was highly likely that Frederick Trump earned his money in the Pacific Northwest during the 1890s through a combination of legitimate hospitality businesses and more shady dealings. Prostitution was everywhere in the American and Canadian West in those days. This was a time and place where single women had a limited range of activities from which they could earn a living. Similarly, most gold prospectors were single men living out on the frontier. It was hardly unusual for the new Arctic restaurant and hotel to offer such services, and this aspect of Trump's services drew little criticism. Though one writer in the Yukon Sun newspaper did write disapprovingly of the practice in the hotel, he also noted that it housed the best restaurant in Bennett at the same time. Money was made in whatever way it could be here, though the Northwest Mounted Police did make an effort to keep life more respectable than it was in other parts of the West. Blackjack, for instance, was the only type of gambling allowed in Bennett, and there was less public drunkenness and violence than was often found in places like Tombstone, Arizona, or Deadwood in the Dakota Territory. By the end of the 19th century, the gold rush was starting to come to an end, as the volume of gold being retrieved from Klondike and surrounding regions declined. Equally, the amount of effort to retrieve it in this inhospitably cold part of the world started to become too much for even seasoned prospectors. In 1900, Trump and Levin decided on a final move to White Horse in the Yukon Territory, where hopes for successful copper mining were growing. The pair literally had the bulk of their hotel loaded on board a barge and shipped around 200 kilometers to the town of White Horse. Here they rebranded it as the White Horse Restaurant and Inn. The new town's mining prospects, however, did not live up to the standard expected. Furthermore, Trump's relationship with Ernest Levin had soured, in part because of Levin's excessive drinking. This led to legal proceedings between the pair over ownership of their establishment. With these issues mounting, Trump decided to take the money he had earned over this decade in the Pacific Northwest. He now made his way back east to New York City. Frederick did not return to live permanently in New York. Both then and now, many migrants initially viewed a move to a country like the United States as a temporary measure. They would make their money and then return home to start a better life in their home place. This is exactly what Frederick Trump planned on doing. Thus, in 1901, he returned to his native Karlstadt. Other than a visit home in 1896 for the marriage of his sister Elisabetta to Karl Freund, this was the first time back in 16 years. He was now a wealthy man by comparison with most of the residents of his hometown, returning home with around 80,000 German marks, a sum equivalent to upwards of around $400,000 in modern economic terms. Newly minted and now in his 30s, he intended to start a family and settle down. He soon found a prospective wife, someone he would have vaguely known before he left, first to undertake his apprenticeship in Frankenthal in 1883, and then for America in 1885. Elisabeth Christ was born in 1880 into a family that lived across the street from the Trumps on the Frankenheimstrasse in Karlstadt. She was still a child when Frederick left for the US, and he would barely have known of her existence. But when he returned to Karlstadt in 1901, he became smitten with her. Perhaps they had met on his previous visit in 1896. Whatever the circumstances, and despite his mother's objections, who viewed the Christ family as socially and economically beneath the newly wealthy Frederick, Trump married Elisabeth on the 26th of August, 1902.
Excuse me, sir, how old were you when you made your first...
While Frederick and Elizabeth had determined to marry and start a family, there was a problem for them if they wanted to remain in Germany. Frederick had left Karlstadt back in 1885 when he was 16 years old. There was no major legal issue with doing so at the time, but in returning to the Kingdom of Bavaria as a man in his early 30s, Frederick had created an issue for himself. In the late 19th century and into the 20th, Bavaria retained its own rules about military conscription. Military service was obligatory for all able-bodied men at 20 years of age, and they were expected to serve at least 2 to 3 years actively, and then a further 4 to 5 as army reservists. Even after this, they had to act as part of the land till the end of their 30s. They could be called upon for national service if Germany went to war at any stage up until they were 45 years old. This meant that if Frederick wanted to try to remain in Germany with his new wife and start a family back in his homeland, he was facing a potentially lengthy period of military service. He clearly didn't fancy this, and so began legal steps to see if he could avoid conscription. His steps to do so, however, did not work out, and the newlyweds soon departed for the US. Consternation followed as Elisabeth, a country girl who was used to small-town life and the nearby grape fields of Karlstadt, found life in New York difficult. As severe homesickness set in, Frederick and Elisabeth briefly returned to Germany in 1904. Once home again, he began to seriously contest his military conscription duties, but it was all to no avail. After months of legal wrangling and petitioning of the government, arguing that he was now a married man in his mid-30s and should be excused military service of any kind, Frederick was informed that he faced legal prosecution if he did not comply. And so, in 1905, the Trumps yet again set sail for America. It was Frederick's third and last time immigrating to the United States, where he would remain for the rest of his life, cementing the Trumps as a family of German-American migrants. By the time the Trumps set off across the Atlantic Ocean yet again in 1905, Elisabeth was pregnant with what would be their second child. She had already given birth to a daughter named Elisabeth after herself in April 1904, right before they left New York to return home to Germany. Hence, while Frederick had fought his military conscription back in Karlstadt in late 1904 and into 1905, Elisabeth had been rearing their infant daughter. Now, back in New York again, she gave birth to a son in October. They named him Frederick after his...
All right. So I just want to ask the question, the elephant in the room. I know a lot of people won't do it, but I'll do it. What is all of the hate and animosity towards immigrants, in the United States when Donald Trump's own grandfather and grandmother were immigrants at some point in this country as well? So when people say that I'm crazy or other people are crazy, when we believe that a lot of this rhetoric and the way these people act and operate is based off of pure racism, because they don't like certain races of people and don't think certain races of people should be in this country, do y'all not see how that kind of could possibly be something that could possibly be true? Because I don't understand. If you believe in everything, and all of the opportunities that can come from individuals leaving from their country and going to another country to create a better life for themselves and their families, why is it that when your grandfather and your grandmother did it, you didn't have anything to say about that, and I didn't see ICE tackling them to the ground and wrestling them around to, take them out or send them back to where they come from, which is what they said in this video, Germany. But when it comes to like Hispanic race, Black race, or people you see to be Black race, that are immigrants here in this country, there's all of these hoops that they got to jump through. Do they have to jump through the same type of hoops that your grandparents had to jump through, or are these are just new hoops that you made because what you have a disdain or a hate for certain races of people? So when I say that individuals are racist and prejudiced, in my personal opinion, that's where it's derived from. Does everybody get it now? Does it make a little bit more sense now? Because this is what I'm saying. Like, you got to put two and two together, right? And have the conversation and put out the raw details and go back in history and bring the facts forward. Bring them all forward. So I'm asking the people, like, when we're talking about these things, like, why is it that certain ethnicity groups or ethnic groups are being targeted when it comes to immigration, but yet there was no problem when your grandparents were immigrants? So white people can be immigrants, no problem. Don't hem them up, don't hurt them. But then again, oh my God, the caveat, which is actually something that is very sad, and I would never laugh at, or, you know, even want to have to say this about. But the caveat is, can y'all explain to me Renee Good? Wasn't she a white woman? Why did y'all do that to her? Why did the ICE agents do that to her? Now, I'm not saying that I expect, but it's almost to a point where we do expect that type of treatment will happen to a Hispanic person or a Black person or a person of color, something of that nature, because this is what we know historically y'all do to us and how y'all feel about us. But why did y'all do that to Renee? Anyway, so my question is, you see what I'm saying? Like, these are your grandparents here that at one point in time in this country were immigrants, because they didn't come from here. They wasn't born and raised here. They're from Germany. Your people is from Germany, Trump. And you the biggest one that got problems with immigrants. So it's cool when they do it, but it's a problem when we do it. Huh? That's basically what, like, you're giving off with your energy. Your whole administration is giving off with their energy. Like, we're not very sure. We're asking for clarity. And we would like it if you could just have some balls for once and just come out and say it. Just drop them down on the table and just come to the forefront and say what it is that you got to say. Because I don't think you like people of other races. I think you're racist. I think you're prejudiced. I do. I wholeheartedly believe that. I mean, come on. We just seen the history. Did y'all not watch it here? Y'all was trying to ice Black people out from getting apartments in New York City. And the Black people, you know what? I got something for you. Yep. Since y'all think I'm crazy, I'm not crazy. I know what I'm talking about. And when I have an intuition and I have a discernment about people, I'm telling you what I know to be true. It's just an energy. It's just a download. You just get it. Let's go ahead and look this up. Come on. Let me look this up right now. Like, this is just impromptu on the fly. Okay. Let's see what some of the Black people had to say when it came to them trying to rent or being mistreated in the apartments, you know, that apparently Trump, I guess, and his father owned at the time. Let's see if I can find something on it, y'all. Let me see if I can pull it up for you. Oh, here go his. Oh, there's a statement from Trump. Okay. Well, there's a statement from when he was young. Let's see. You want to hear that statement? Yeah. Let's see what this statement says. Hold on. History is so important, y'all. We need to pay attention to it, and we need to dive into it whenever we get a chance to. You know what I mean? Like, educate yourself about what has happened at some point in time. But hold on, y'all give me 2 seconds. I want y'all to hear this real quick. But let me do something real quick. Okay, boom. Let's do it like that. Let's do it like that. And let's do it like this. All right, here we go.
On Central Park South at 6th Avenue will be torn down as soon as Donald can get all the tenants out. Trump says he has millionaires there living in rent-controlled flats. When Donald offered to put some of the city's homeless people in vacant apartments there, the city turned him down.
You walk down the streets today and you see people freezing. And I said, put them in those apartments.
Can you blame people for looking a little askance at that and saying, well, isn't it going to be quite unpleasant for these millionaires who live in this building? Isn't that part of what's in the back of your mind?
I don't blame them. I must tell you, and it's not in the back of my mind. What I can say is that we have in Midtown Manhattan, possibly the only 20 vacant apartments in the whole of Midtown Manhattan. And they're being heated, and there's hot water. And I say,
20 vacant apartments that are heated with hot water. Now, y'all have to listen between the lines, okay? What they're trying to fight for or say that he was saying is that there's homeless people in New York City, and he wants to put these homeless people in his apartments. But the New York City establishments denied the request. Do y'all believe that to be true or not? Come on now. But again, these are people that twist the storylines around to make it seem like somebody is good and doing for the people when they're not. And so if they want to twist the storylines around, that's very much okay with me, because I know how to break down a storyline and read between the lines and hear exactly what is being said. So now you have just admitted you have 20 vacant apartments that have heat and water, but you're denying black applicants. This is at the same time that they were denying black applicants in New York City to live in their establishment. So this is what I'm saying when it comes to dumb criminals. They sit up here, and when they try to actually present themselves as being worthy, present themselves as being innocent, they actually will sit up here and tell you all you need to know to piece the information together to make it known that these people are liars and they are running some type of hustle or scam. If on one hand, black people said you're not renting to them, on the other hand, you said you don't have any apartments available. On the other hand, if you now want to talk to whoever it is, you know, probably the governor, the mayor, the city council, something like that, so you can get some money and, you know, do the things that y'all people do for money. That you have 20 units available that come equipped with hot water and heat. Why you not renting to black people then? Then now all of a sudden you have all of these vacant buildings available for homeless. Don't get me wrong. Homeless people, I don't want homeless people to be on the streets. I believe that there is too many apartments, too many homes, too many buildings and structures for people to have to live out and sleep out on the streets. I believe that. And that's something that I would never subscribe to. However, all of these conversations are always happening at the same time where you are denying black people being able to rent apartments in your building. And then you just sit up there and say how many vacancies you have. This is all I'm saying when it comes to, you got to read between the lines.
Let the people stay in there until we get the entire possession.
Hey, listen to this.
100-unit apartment house on Central Park South at 6th Avenue will be torn down as soon as Donald can get all the tenants out. Trump says he has millionaires there living in rent-controlled flats. When Donald offered to put some of the city's homeless people in vacant apartments there, the city turned him down.
You walk down the streets today and you see people freezing. And I said, put them in those apartments.
Can you blame people for looking a little askance at that and saying, well, isn't it going to be quite unpleasant for these millionaires who live in the...
Yeah, the people freezing on the streets are probably black people that y'all wouldn't rent to. What are we talking about? Is this whole world and society like so fucking dumb? Like, I really don't understand what are we talking about. Things just don't add up or make sense to me. Like, does 1 + 1 no longer equal 2? I'm just not understanding. All of these people out on the streets, they ain't got nowhere to live. They're homeless. They're in the cold. But at the same time, you have an apartment building where you're denying black people to rent from. And then you want to talk about, so are we talking about the black homeless or the white homeless? Which homeless are we talking about? Which ones are you about to let into the apartment building? Is it the same homeless that you couldn't approve for a lease? You could have approved these people for a lease in your building. Now, all of a sudden, you want to make it seem like, oh, you're to the rescue to help and save the homeless people by giving them apartments in your building when they are the same people that applied for apartments in your building in the very first place. Are we dumb or are we stupid? I just want to know. Like, I don't know where we stand anymore as a people. Are we dumb? Are we stupid? I know I'm not dumb or stupid. I want to ask the other people out there, are y'all dumb or y'all stupid? When y'all hear these type of things, like what goes through your mind when you hear this type of stuff? Because what goes through my mind is exactly what I just broke down to you. This is at the same very time when he did this video. Okay, y'all don't want to believe me? Okay, let me show you. All right, let me go ahead and do this. Let me take the overlay off. This is at the same very time that they had the lawsuit because they wouldn't rent to black people. Then there became some type of homelessness crisis. Then you want to sit with reporters and say that you have 20 open vacancies that have hot water and heat, and the homeless people shouldn't be on the street. But if you have rented to them in the first place and not discriminate against them for being black, they probably would not be homeless. So I want to know, when these homeless people that you saying you have all this fight for and you want to give these vacancies to move into your building, are they white homeless or are they black homeless? That's what I want to know. This is a video. I showed y'all how young he was. I'll show you again if you want to see it. This is at the same time when all of this was going down, when they refused to rent to black people in New York City. Trump was young. He didn't have the colostomy bag. He didn't have any, allegedly, he didn't have any of the things going on that he has now. The toupee, he didn't need that. He had his own hair growing from his scalp. I'm talking about that many years ago, when he didn't want to rent to black people, him and his father, at their apartment building. But you have vacancies and now you want to help the homeless. They probably wouldn't be homeless if you rented to them. I just don't understand. Are we dumb or are we stupid?
This building, isn't that part of what's in the back of your mind?
I don't blame him. I must tell you, and it's not in the back of my mind. What I can say is that we have in Midtown Manhattan possibly the only 20 vacant apartments in the whole of Midtown Manhattan, and they're being heated, and there's hot water. And I say, let the people stay in there until we get the entire possession.
Hey, listen to this.
100-unit apartment house on Central Park South at 6th Avenue will be torn down as soon as Donald can get all the tenants out. Trump says he has millionaires there living in rent-controlled flats. When Donald offered to put some of the city's homeless people in vacant apartments there, the city turned him down.
You walk down the streets today and you see people freezing. And I said, put them in those apartments.
Can you blame people for looking a little askance at that and saying, well, isn't it going to be quite unpleasant for these millionaires who live in this building? Isn't that part of what's in the back of your mind?
I don't blame him. I must tell you, and it's not in the back of my mind. What I can say is that we have in Midtown Manhattan possibly the only 20 vacant apartments in the whole of Midtown Manhattan. And they're being heated, and there's hot water. And I say, let the people stay in there until we get the entire possession.
Hey, listen to this.
100-unit apartment house on Central Park South.
sickness spreads in whispers, and poison wells decrepit corrupted. But a community with a strong immune system develops its own antidote. This is the cure. Listen. Listen, there's a venom in the discourse, a toxin in the talk, a parasitic agent feasting on the soul of the block. It spreads through the timeline, infecting the youth, disguising its poison. In the fragment of truth, it preaches self-interest, promotes the individual dream. Anything to fracture the collective, to poison the stream. We see the symptoms in the envy, the distrust that you breed. You planting seeds of chaos, fulfilling the system's need. This ain't about a person, this is about a constitution. You're a weapon of division, a tool of social pollution. Like my. The agenda's getting bold. Why? Your people have been sold. Jig is up. You're the poison, the cancer, and the cold. You don't fight for the cause. You just lighten the load for the oppressed. My. Hear the conscience, see the fraud. Bye. Your whole damn act's a fraud. You're a symptom of the sickness, a tool of the trade. For every conscience that we take, you pull us from the shade back into the darkness. Fighting sister against brother while you collect the profits, then go poison another. You weaponize our trauma, you monetize our pain. Tell us to tear each other down for your temporary gain. You speak the language of the people with the motives of the state. A sleeper cell of selfishness designed to make us hate. But the body's getting stronger, the fever's starting to break. We can finally see the difference between what's real and what's fake. Like my, the agenda's getting bold. Why? People have been sold. Jig is up. You're the poison, the cancer, and the cold. You don't fight for the cause. You just lighten the load for the soul. My. Yeah, the conscience, see the fraud. Bye. Your whole damn act's a fraud. But the antidote is unity, the cure is in the roots. It's the knowledge of the elders and the fire in the boots of a generation rising that refuses to be bought. Recalling all the lessons that our ancestors taught. We cleanse the foundation, rebuild the immune to make the collective a garden where the real seeds can bloom. You can't poison a forest that shares a single source. We are the uprising, the unstoppable force. This is a conscious rebellion, a surgical strike to separate the healthy cells from the ones you're alike. This is more than a track, it's a call to the core, to protect the foundation of what we're fighting for. So let them have the clout, let them have the fake fame, while we reclaim the power that's attached to our name. Every word is a brick, every verse is a wall, to protect the community and watch the poisoners fall. So let the record show a community divided is a target, a community infected is a tragedy, but a community united is a revolution. And the golden rule: protect the people. My. Protect the people. Protect the people. My. Protect the people. The people presence. My.
All right, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into this final video. So we're going to be talking about the whistleblowers now, exposing the FBI over Charlie Kirk's unaliving. And we'll be talking about how Erica Kirk is running a new scam. But it won't be me talking about it, y'all. It'll be two ladies that I love to watch now often. From iHip Network. This is going to be I've Had It. And this is Jennifer, okay, is going to be speaking with her co-host, okay? And I want y'all to listen to this real close. Because, child, they are hilarious and they hold nothing back. So let's go ahead and get into this for a minute. I want y'all to hear a bit of this and see what is going on. Let's go ahead and get into it.
We have a very interesting intersection taking place at the very top echelons of the American government. And now I'm not talking about the dementia guy that we talk about all the time. I mean, that's ubiquitous. He's a moron. He's incompetent. He's a sociopath surrounded by freak shows. No question about it. But what do devout MAGA Christians and sociopathic billionaires have in common? And it turns out quite a lot. And so you may remember when Charlie Kirk was assassinated, murdered. I personally think that Charlie Kirk should be alive. I think we have a gun problem in this country. And I disagreed with everything that Charlie Kirk said. I thought he was a vile racist homophobe, but I did not want him dead. I don't want anybody killed by gun violence in the United States of America. And you may remember Kash Patel getting on TV and saying, I love you, brother. I'll see you in Valhalla, right? Real choked up about the thing. Well, it turns out Kash Patel is so breathtakingly incompetent in the FBI that career FBI agents are leaking all to the press about what a reckless, maniacal, incompetent, sociopathic diva Kash Patel is. And right after, in the immediate aftermath of Charlie Kirk getting shot, their best friend, their brother, who's waiting on them in Valhalla, here is what Kash Patel and Bongino were up to. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino were focused on their Twitter strategy in the immediate aftermath of Charlie Kirk's death, according to ex-FBI agent John Sullivan. This is from the New York Times, and an excerpt from this article is as follows. And then it turns surreal. He and Bongino start talking about their Twitter strategy, and Kash is like, I'm going to tweet this. Salt Lake, you tweet that. Dan, you come in with this. Then I'll come back with talking about how we're going to respond or resources or the situation. He's screaming that he wants to put stuff out, but it's not even vetted yet. It's not even accurate. And so this, to me, they wanted this murder of Charlie Kirk to be their Reichstag fire moment, to be a moment where they could really accelerate the kind of the Gestapo stuff we're seeing right now and erode civil liberties. They roll out this batshit crazy funeral for him that looks like a WWE match with the evangelical Christians waving the hands, and it's all this Christian nationalism, fireworks, and all this shit. And here's at the end of the day, I played for you all the clip of Trump. They asked him, like, Charlie Kirk was like a son to you. Or how are you holding up? He's like, oh my God, look at they're about to demo the East Wing for my ballroom. It's like, these people have no feelings. None of this means anything to them. Nothing. It's all Twitter strategy to own the libs.
You know why I'm not surprised by Bongino and Kash Patel doing this? Because they're fucking podcasters. They're not law enforcement. They don't have any experience. They can't beat their meat. That is how ridiculous and incompetent they are. So the fact that we're getting inaccurate information all over Twitter right after a shooting, that's who they are. Inaccuracies are the only thing that feed the propaganda, because the truth tells us how sinister and incompetent they are. But that is why you have real lifelong FBI agents who have been in the ranks, who have worked at every level, that run the FBI, and not podcasters.
So I totally agree with you, Pumps. And after the assassination, I think we've all been pretty shocked, and everybody grieves in their own way, but we've all been pretty shocked at the sanctimony of Eric Kirk, the grieving widow, to trot out these Christian family values and to use her gender as a weapon and to use her faith as a weapon to tell women in the United States of America that they need to marry and breed and stay at home while she is working full time, while her husband was just murdered and she is on a speaking engagement tour, right? And this breed of evangelical Christianity, you guys, it's very important to understand how diabolical it is. It is absolutely a death cult. They weaponize their religion in the most sanctimonious way. And then when people call them out for said weaponization, they act like they are victims of that. And it doesn't work that way. And we must call it out, because this is at the epicenter of Trump's voting support. at the epicenter of his governing support are billionaires, but the electorate are these evangelicals. And she knows this, Erica Kirk. And here she is at her Jim Jones rally, Make Heaven Crowded. And
you want to file free? Hit it.
And she calls ICE protesters the following. Play the clip.
Videos that came in to that chat, awkwardly enough, was a clip of Rachel Maddow and Jimmy Kimmel. I can't even believe saying their names in a church, but together. But it was interesting because he asked her the question, do you think these protests are helping? Personally, I do not. I think it's demonic.
Okay, right there. She said right there under her breath, personally, I do not. I think it's demonic. And let's talk about how this woman is weaponizing her faith, standing in a church, number one, dehumanizing Rachel Maddow and Jimmy Kimmel because they have a different opinion than she does. But let's talk about who's more Christian in this. Let's get to the nut cutting here. ICE agents terrorizing people based on skin color, shooting a mother of 3 because her wife called the agent a big boy, and he shot her 3 times fatally and called her a fucking bitch. ICE kidnapping 5-year-old little boys, using as bait. And she thinks Jesus gives a shit about her mentioning Rachel Maddow's name or Jimmy Kimmel's name in church, this petty bullshit. This petty stuff. And I want to say right here, right now, these evangelical Christians are the most diabolical, manipulating, arrogant sect I've ever seen. It's all about the grift. The whole electorate is about, we're going to Christian values. We're trotting out our Christian values and wrapped up in all this bullshit patriotism. And at the end of the day, supporting a pedophile, an alleged pedophile, and a pedophile protector, Donald Trump. And they're not standing with these marginalized kids. They're not standing with immigrants. They're not standing with refugees. They're not down at homeless places. They're demeaning those people. They're demeaning the poor. And I am not a Christian. I think Jesus was a fictional character, and I'm not trying to offend anybody in my audience that believes he was real, because that's your right. And I'll always fight for your right to think it's real. But I do not think it was. I think he was a great character, a radical empath, a radical socialist that met people at human suffering. And the more people I meet in my life, the less religious they are, the more Christ-like they are. And the more overtly religious they are, the more narcissistic, sociopathic, grandstanding shit shows they are, like Erica Kirk. And this is just breathtaking hypocrisy right here, that these people want to be on the moral high ground. Mm-hmm. And that whole church, she's in a mega church. The whole purpose of that church is to grift. So.
All right, y'all. So if you were curious about what they're talking about, I'm going to go ahead and show y'all a little bit of it. And then we're going to go ahead and wrap up this live because it's been going over 2 hours now. But yeah, so this is basically what has just recently happened. The TPUSA Faith launches Make Heaven Crowded tour. This is the tour that Erica Kirk is on, which is Charlie Kirk's wife, very shortly after his demise. So let's go ahead and listen to what she got to say, which I really don't care anything about, but just so y'all can have context, let's go ahead and listen to this. And of course, this is from Fox News, so beware, we may not get the full coverage.
Erica Kirk kicking off the Turning Point USA's Make Heaven Crowded tour at Harvest Church in Riverside, California, Greg Laurie's church, where she spoke about the role of faith in her marriage to her late husband, Charlie Kirk.
And so for us, when we got married, we wanted to be very intentional about how the Lord would use our marriage. And so we wrote down goals for our marriage. And one of our goals was to always spread the gospel. And attached to that at the top, it was spread the gospel, make heaven crowded. And that was our thing. I wanted to take that piece of slice of heaven from that memorial for my husband and bring it to everyone around this country.
And here to discuss is Charlie Kirk's mentor, who was actually in the SUV with Charlie when they were driving him to the hospital in those final moments, Dr. Frank Turek. Dr. Turek, thank you so much for coming on.
Ainsley, thank you for having me on. I just spoke to Erica last night, and isn't it amazing that she sees her husband brutally murdered and she doesn't start a riot, she doesn't start a protest, she doesn't somehow try and tear down other people or tear down the government. What she does is she starts a series of worship services because she knows eternity is more important than anything that goes on here right now. And she wants people to know that the way you get to heaven is to trust in what Christ has done, because he lived the perfect life in our place. I mean, she is amazing when you think about this, Ainsley. Just 4 months ago, and she's starting worship services. Meanwhile, the left is disrupting them.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's because she has the Holy Spirit. You know, she's actually living what is being preached to her and what she's reading in the Bible, and she's trying to follow what Christ.
All right, y'all. So that's Fox News, child. And they said that, you know, she's got the Holy Spirit and she is preaching what is in the Bible. Okay. If that's what they choose to believe, then let people believe, child, what they want to believe. But anyway, that is all I got on this live, y'all. I thought we ended with that little comical note. I don't know if it was funny to y'all. It's funny to me because I can just see right through it. Like it is, you know, a piece of plastic wrap, basically. That's how transparent these people are. But anyway, that is all I have on that. I hope you did get some decent information and historical information when it comes to, you know, the Trump dynasty, where it kind of all started from, possibly why he is the way he is now and moves and operates the way he does now. We all have a history. It ain't just him, child. You know what I mean? But I think it's important for us to go back and really pay attention to those things, you know, even from when he was a little itty bitty bot and a lot of stuff you thought you didn't remember, you did subconsciously download and remember and absorb. And as you move on throughout your life and you do become an adult, some of those things stick with you. That is the truth of the matter, I believe. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Thank you so much for tuning into the live. Let's go ahead and get up out of here. I didn't held y'all too long already. I will talk to y'all on the next one. We have another one coming up this evening. So I'll speak to y'all then. All right, y'all. That's all I got. I'm out. Bye.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let it ring out loud. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea, like the mighty waters. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. We remember it all. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Hope is alive, yeah. Facing the rising sun of our new day been to the right place. Welcome to the rain. Golden Queen, H2.0. Let's get it. You're looking for a diamond, found a treasure in the rough. Tired of all the noise, cause you finally had enough. I'm here to build a movement on a mission for the nation. Dropping gems of knowledge, killing all the hesitation. We fighting for the truth, yeah, we fighting for what's right. Building unity and shining up a brand new light. It's a variety channel, but the vision's crystal clear. Pushing us all forward, conquering the doubt and fear.
Yo, welcome to the Queendom, H2.0 on your screen, where the content's real and smart and funny in between. This is more than just a stream, it's a platform for the change. Time to elevate the game and rearrange. So if you're ready for a vibe that you can feel and trust, joining in the movement is a definite must.
This ain't just another channel talking smack behind the screen. It's a spotlight for the creators, building up of the scene. Spreading radical love, that's the message in the code. Helping everybody carry up a heavy load. From social justice issues to the laughter that we need. Planting seeds of progress, watch them grow from just a seed. This is authentic, this is raw, this is everything you saw. Welcome to the battle that is truly being fought.
Oh, so come with your respect and see the real effect. Cause I protect my own right here on the throne. Don't make me unleash the dragon. You've been warned.
Yeah. Don't make me unleash the dragon. You've been warned. Yeah. Don't make me unleash the dragon. You've been warned. Yeah. Yeah. Golden Queen H2.0. The movement starts now. Go ahead. Hit subscribe, ring that notification bell. You don't want to miss a thing. Welcome to the family.